Samyukta, and today the topic which we are going to cover is impact of schemas on social cognition. Now in this lesson you will be able to understand the significance of social cognition in social psychology, learn the concept of schemas in social setting. I am going to tell you it's going to be very interesting, and know the significant role played by schemas in social cognition. So as you can see the title, there are two important concepts we need to get familiar with. One is schemas and the other one is social cognition. First, we will try to understand the concept of social cognition and then we will cover schemas. Now dear students, we humans as social animals, I hope you will be able to connect. When we operate in our social environment, whether focused on single person, a group or even themselves, people invest a tremendous amount of time and energy in thinking about human beings, their behavior and their interaction. We form impressions of individuals we are meeting for the first time. Is it not? When we go to a new place and you try to get familiar with the people. How is this person? Can I trust this person or not? Oh, he sounds very bossy. Is it not? Why we do that? So that we know how to operate in that environment. So we notice the social group to which people belong and our understanding of their behavior can be affected by our beliefs about their gender, ethnicity, age, nationality or even sexual orientation. We listen to others' opinions and arguments, identifying whether we agree or disagree and considering if we should change our mind in response. We replay social interactions from memory, wondering why an exchange went as it did or how it might have been altered had our words or actions been different. And this is a process, nothing but social cognition, and with your awareness or without your awareness in your day-to-day life, daily you keep continuing this pattern when you go to new situations or even with the familiar situations, because that helps us to judge the situation and behave accordingly. Now, social cognition is the manner in which we interpret, analyze, remember and use information about the social world. Social cognition is about how we think about the social world, our attempts to understand it and ourselves and our place. And now it's time to cover a formal definition given by Fisk and Taylor. Now Fisk and Taylor says social cognition is the study of how people form inferences from social information in the environment. Now here the key term which you have to focus is inferences. So how you understand that person. You might understand that person in different way. I might infer the person in a different way. And it explores the way people make judgments about social groups, social roles and their own social expectations. Now thus social cognition also helps in making decisions about the behaviors and actions. So in a way, social cognitions are helping us in day-to-day to operate with new people, new environment. Okay, if we go into the depth of the process of social cognition, we get some important hints about the important aspects of social cognition. The first one, our social thought is not always rational. As I told you, it helps us provided it's rational. Rather, it is subjected to some kind of errors. We are humans. In day-to-day life, we are in such a hurry that sometimes we jump to conclusions. Let's say a teacher saw a student talking secretively to another student, they will come to conclusion, oh, she's gossiping or she's copying. Maybe it is you were just asking to borrow a pen. So there what happened? The teacher committed an error in social cognition. Okay, so we do this probably because thinking about a social world involves hard and strenuous effort. Therefore, we avoid it, or at least the possible extent, and remain intact and feel safe with our earlier held views and beliefs. Okay, so that's in some extent social cognition helps us, but there is always a scope that we can commit an error. Now the second point, the processing of social information appears to be completed in automatic manner due to some kind of stereotype prevalence in the society. Now let me briefly tell you, stereotype is nothing but the belief. The belief that teachers are strict, the belief that movie actors are have multiple relationships. These are our beliefs. Okay, so for example, if we hear the news of a woman doing the job of a truck driver, we immediately conclude that this information may be wrong, because the job of a truck driver involves very hard and strenuous work, which ordinarily cannot be done by a woman. Now this is a stereotype, and that is because of your past experience. You might have seen less women doing such work. Moreover, temperamentally, women are not fit for this job. Thus, the information is automatically processed. See, once you store that belief, later on it becomes automated and it comes into picture without your conscious effort. We sometimes may not care to think and examine the information carefully and systematically and end up judging people. Now the third one, if this viewpoint of other persons are challenged, they might get affected, or they might become emotional, aggressive, or they might feel bad, which in turn makes him behave in more unreasonable way than ever. Now this means that there is an obvious link between a social cognition and affect. Both reciprocally influence each other. Such interplay between cognition and affect is nothing but emotions, okay, is also a very important aspect of social cognition. So now I hope you have a clear idea about what is social cognition. It is a broader term. Now let's go to our second hero, that is schema or schematas. Okay, social psychologists prefer to use the term schema or schemata to denote the set type of well-organized structure of cognition about social entities like a person, a group, a role or event. Now schemas generally include information about an entity, attributes, and its relation with other entities. Thus, schema refer to a mental structure containing information relevant to self, other people, specific events or situations. More specifically and scientifically, schemas are defined as a mental framework around a specific theme that helps us in organizing social information and guiding the processing of such information. Is it sounding complex? Don't worry, in a while I'll give you multiple examples of schemas when we are talking about the types of schemas. Now schemas are established on the basis of previous experience, culture, from which culture you belong to, and social norms or perceived understanding, and provide a good framework for organizing, interpreting and processing social information. So schemas are ready-made things which will help us in our day-to-day life. Once schemas are established, they help us in interpreting new situations and guiding our behavior. Now every individual frames schemas. Let us understand this. Suppose you are going out to a restaurant, okay? So what would happen? Obviously, you will enter the restaurant, take your seat, and then you would find an attendant to your service. Now she will take the orders from you and would provide you the food once it is ready. Later, you would pay the bill and leave the place. None of the statements appear shocking to you. Why? Because you have a schema. You already know this is how restaurant look like and this is how we get service at the restaurant. because you know that you will encounter these similar situations or almost alike ones once you visit such places, restaurants. We have already acquired these mental frameworks on the basis of our previous experiences, and they help us in guiding our actions when we come across those stimuli again, or maybe any new or similar one. Thus, we all have schemas about various stimuli we have encountered earlier. Again, Fisk and Taylor, to make our business easy, has classified schemas into 4 types. Of those include self schema, person schema, role schema, and event schema. All these 4 types of schema serve vital function in processing, organizing, and using social information. Now, if you can see the illustration on your screen, there are 4 types of schemas. Yes, again these schemas can be segregated into 4 different types, and they are stored in our mind. So, person, self schema, role schema, and event schema. So, now let's go and discuss one after the other briefly. Now, self schema are defined as cognitive generalizations about self based on experiences of the past. In fact, self schemas are structures that tend to organize our conception of our own characteristics. If I ask you, what do you think about yourself? What you would say? That is your self schema. Now, self schemas from the cognitive component of self concept and are organized around a specific traits or features, which we generally think as most central of our self image. For example, if a person think about a self as being, I am an independent one, okay, or he may see himself as, I am a very assertive person, I say things on the face of a people upward, so that is like you are an assertive person. So, if he behaves consistently with this self schema, he may refuse to take money from parents, refuse to ask others to help him provided he thinks himself as independent. He will try to lead a discussion if he is assertive, etc. Now, the second schema comes, and that is a person schema. Person schema are the mental structures which represent knowledge about the trait of specific personalities. I hope the names which I am going to call out now you are familiar. One is Indira Gandhi, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, President Bill Clinton. You take any such person. When that person comes to your mind, what reflects in your mind is a person schema. Now, this can also be the traits of an individual, like introvert. He is very shy type, psychopathic, maniac, extrovert, depressive, moody. All these things are different person schemas. Now, person schema organize the person's conception of others' personality and enable him to develop expectations about others' behavior. Now, the third one comes role schemas. Now, role schemas are defined in terms of various attributes and behaviors which are typically of persons who occupy a particular role in the society, and attributes are typical of persons occupying a particular position or role in the group. Now, these roles can be either achieved or ascribed. So, achieve role, I will give you some examples. That could be the occupational roles like a bank manager, a team captain, a nurse, a doctor, a police officer. These are the achieved roles. Now, the ascribed roles are those over which we have no control. For example, the demographics, your age, your gender, your race, your community, your caste, your nationality. Now, these are some of the ascribed roles. In our society, for example, the role of a female is different from a role of a male. Now, role schemas are often considered as stereotypes. I hope you remember earlier I already said you, stereotypes are the beliefs especially when considered in relation to ascribed roles of gender and race. Okay? Then comes the fourth type, that is event schemas. Event schemas are defined as the mental frameworks which relate to some specific events or situations. In other words, event schemas are schemas regarding important reoccurring events of our society. Just like the example I gave before of a restaurant, that can also be considered as an event schema. Event schemas are scripts which indicate what is expected to happen in a given situation. Now, these scripts or event schemas helps us in anticipating how to behave in a given situation. In our society, we have event schemas for wedding, birthday parties, funerals, just like eating at restaurant or in a hospital, in a police station. Event schemas for wedding, for example, help us in deciding what type of dress we should put on, how we should interact with the groom and the bridegroom, what and how we should eat, etc. As long as both acts according to the wedding script, things go well. However, if it doesn't go accordingly, sometimes a negative consequences might take place at the wedding, and of course we don't want that to happen. Now, as we understood social cognition and schemas, it's time for us to understand the crucial title, how does schemas impact social cognition? Now, this can also be called as schematic processing, and it requires 3 cognitive processes, that is nothing but attention, encoding and retrieval. And impact. Now, whether are they going to impact positively or negatively, we are going to discuss soon. Now, and because of this, it has a tremendous influence of our social cognition. Therefore, schema, especially nothing but a schematic processing, influences our cognition as cognitive processes involved in it. So, first let's discuss what is attention. Attention refers to what we notice selectively. Maybe if you're seeing my video right now and you found it interesting and you're paying attention to the video, that is attention. I mean, you're focusing on it, that is attention. It is impossible to pay attention to every even stimulus present in our environment, is it not? There are many things around, but I am focusing at you, right? Therefore, we have to be selective. We are most likely to attend to some aspects of situations or event or people more often than others, and schema provide us with the criteria for being selective, which one I should select to. Because I already have a schema, if I enter an airport, I know first I should finish the security, then the baggage, then the boarding. That schema is helping me where to focus rather than on the shopping. Okay. So, information regarding stimulus or a person which is consistent with schema is where we are going to put our attention, okay, and it is likely to be noticed and enter into our consciousness. Information that is inconsistent with schema is often ignored unless it is extraordinary, something which is very different, extraordinary, maybe we might focus attention, but generally we pay attention which matches with our schema. Okay. So, now let us go to the second one, that is encoding. It refers to matching one's existing schema with the incoming information. Once schemas are formed, information consistent with them is easier to encode rather than encoding inconsistent information. However, it has been shown that inconsistent information sometimes more readily noticed and encoded. In fact, such inconsistent information is so unexpected that it forces our attention. For example, I am going on a road and watching the vehicles which are going, and suddenly another vehicle comes from the next side which I didn't expected. I have to shift my attention there to so that is all about encoding. For example, students have a well established schema of a professor and they expect him to teach in the class and answer the questions raised by them. But suppose the professor, instead of teaching, started showing magic tricks in the class and cutting the jokes. Now, students who are present in the class, luckily or unluckily, will always remember this experience because the experience is highly inconsistent, they might have never seen a professor cutting a jokes or making a magic in the class. Now, the third component of social cognition is retrieval. Now, retrieval from memory is a third process. The information which is readily retrieved or recalled is of two types: schema consistent information, schema inconsistent information. Researchers have shown that overall schema consistent information is better recalled than schema inconsistent information. Although schemas provide certain advantages because they are very helpful in processing information in easy way, they also have some disadvantages. So, they are both pros and cons. Now, the disadvantages: schemas may produce some distortions in understanding our social relationships. Schemas may play a important role in developing prejudices by strengthening negative beliefs like stereotypes about a social group. It is due to schema producing prejudice, that is a negative attitude, that we see any politician as an opportunist and corrupt, but there might be few politicians who are honest and they want to help the society, although the reality may be the otherwise. Now, the second disadvantage would be, it has been found that when people face missing information, they fill the gaps with the knowledge by adding such elements which are consistent with schemas. And you assume certain things because you don't know, you don't have information. Sometimes these newly added information are factually could be incorrect, and such information creates inaccurate interpretation or influence about people, events or groups. Keeping in view these disadvantages, any impact of schema upon cognition has to be treated with caution. I hope you're clear with this concept, and now it's time to conclude this session with a brief summary of what we have covered so far. Well, we learned that social cognition is the manner in which we interpret, analyze, remember and use information about the social world. On the other hand, schemas refer to the mental structure containing information relevant to self, people, events and situations. I told you there are 4 types, and schema especially, that is the schematic processing, influence our cognition as cognitive processes of attention, encoding and retrieval are involved in it. In our day-to-day, schemas helps us to take decisions and inferences quickly, yet sometimes they make us judge the people and situations which may not actually true. So, researchers have shown that overall schema consistent information is better recalled than schema inconsistent information, but as I told you, sometimes if it is exceptional, if it is deviant, it is too novel, you might pay focus. Now, basing on this, a research has been done by Stanger and Macmillan, and he showed that the effects of schema upon social cognition are also influenced by some other factors. Such effects are found to be stronger when schemas are themselves so strongly well developed, and also such effects are stronger when cognitive load is higher than low. Now comes the question, like, what is cognitive load? Well, let me explain you. Cognitive load here means how much mental effort we are expanding at a given time. Let me say, in a class, I am tired from morning to evening, and before leaving a class, students are arguing or talking. When there is too much of a cognitive load on my mind, I might immediately rely on schemas. Oh, again these students started indisciplined behavior, let me shout at them or let me warn them. So what happened here? Due to cognitive load, especially in such situations, schemas helps us to take decisions easily or to behave. Like, I'm going in a market, there is so much of cognitive load. You know, one person is coming this side, one person is coming, it's very crowded. Then what happens? I'm already cognitively overloaded. Then if a person is coming from my back side, the schemas help me. Stay alert. A person is coming from a back, hold your back very tightly. Maybe he's a thief. So see, when there is a cognitive load, schemas can help us. When a person that is what I'm trying to say, when a person tries to handle so much information at a time, he relies more on schema because they permit us to process this information with less mental effort. So obviously, which means schemas have a good advantage in our day-to-day life. Although schemas provide certain disadvantages because they are, you know, sometimes lead us to make or take wrong decisions and judgments. Now it's time to conclude this session with a brief summary of what we have covered so far. Well, we learned that social cognition is the manner in which we interpret, analyze, remember and use information about the social world. On the other hand, schema refer to mental structure containing information relevant to self, other people, specific event or situations. Schema, especially schematic processing, influences our cognition as cognitive processes of attention, encoding and retrieval are involved in it. In our day-to-day, schemas helps us to take decisions and inferences quickly, yet always be mindful because sometimes they make us to judge people and situations which may not actually be true, and we might lack empathy towards other people, and that can create conflicts. I hope this lesson gave you insight that how schemas and social cognitions, knowingly or unknowingly, plays such a huge vast role in our day-to-day life. Thank you.